afternoon, fellow constitutionals, and welcome to the Free-for-All-Friday edition of the Dan Clemens Show, a Christian political talk show. This is episode 818. I'm your host, Dan Clemens, your constitutional warrior, fighting for your right just to be an American. It is June 9th in the year of our Lord 2017. Remember, we're a hyphen-free, PC-free zone. God is still in control, and he does love you. And I'm broadcasting live from the Hemlock Studios here in the beautiful, sunny central Susquehanna Valley in the great Keystone State. Before the great John Wayne desk, it is Hawaiian Shirt Friday. This is a tradition that goes back to my dispatching days at H.F. Campbell & Son in Millerstown, PA. I started it first day of spring to the first day of fall. Every Friday it would be, usually a lot of places have like a casual Friday as far as a dress code. I initiated in our office, and I usually once or twice somebody else wore one, which was good. But I started that tradition, and I've kept up that tradition while I'm actually producing the show also and hosting this show. So this is something that's been that I just do. I love doing this. Now I'm looking. Thank God that everything's working okay. I'm just checking some things out here. Stream's good. If you missed the show or you haven't seen the videos uploaded to YouTube, or you missed the live stream, I do apologize. Last Friday I had a power surge because the wind was blowing, and it wasn't storming, just the wind was blowing. The power went out, and like a dummy, instead of just shutting everything off, because I do have a power backup over here, but it only lasts for like 30 minutes. What I should have done, and I'll do in the future, is I'll power everything down, go downstairs, turn on the generator, get that powering the house, and then reboot everything up. And what happened was, during that time, I had a power surge, and I did talk to my wife. She thought since we had electricity that she could just go about her daily business, and she started doing washing, and I think she actually turned on the dryer, and that caused the power surge. Didn't kick the generator off, just caused the power surge. And I told my wife, you can't do that. That's especially while I'm broadcasting, because my peeps need to see me. What an exciting day yesterday. I don't know if you took the time out to watch ex-FBI or former FBI, however you want to pronounce it or say it, James Comey's testimony. I was deep in show prep, trying to get caught up on work because of what happened last Friday. And so I didn't get to see it live, but I watched it. ABC had a feed. I want to thank ABC for that. They had actual feed on that. So I sat down yesterday afternoon prepping for today's show and taking my afternoon break, because I just run out of energy, and watched the whole 2 hours, and wow. It did surprise me in one way, because a lot of time these hearings get contentious. And you could definitely tell there was a left-right divide in the room. And you could definitely tell that some of the Democrats were literally looking for something to pin on President Trump. And if you didn't see it, I don't care about spoiler alerts. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. There wasn't, as NBC said, there was no smoking gun in there. One of the funniest things I thought was funny, and maybe it's not because it might be a health issue, was I was wondering if Senator John McCain was actually awake while he was had his 7 minutes in the sun. James Comey was answering his questions, but John McCain wasn't hearing the answer. John McCain was trying to lump all these investigations in together, and instead of keeping them apart like James Comey was trying to tell him that we needed to do. So it was, like I said, it was pretty funny that way. He was the last one to ask questions. I don't know why that was, but they went into that was a 2 hour. And then he had another 2 hours in a secret session. And so far, I haven't seen anything on today's news where anything was leaked out for that. So I thought it was a good day politically. I think, and this is something that I'm going to be moving my eyes around here a little bit. And this is something, again, there was no smoking guns. Matter of fact, the lamestream media was humiliated. Guys like me that have been caught saying all this is fake and fabricated news have been vindicated. shows like mine and those that are pointing this out, that all this fake news has been vindicated. We're vindicated because they were making it up. We found out that James Comey was the one that was leaking the memos. We don't know who was leaking them. Here it was him. And we also found out that, James Comey maybe isn't the brave man that people think he is, or the man of integrity that people say that he is. They were saying that, but there was a lot of his testimony, the leaking, his failure as far as his duty to inform the president, that he thought the president might be overstepping his boundaries with the dinners and the suggestions and stuff like that, and he needed to take it up with since Attorney General Jeff Sessions has recused himself of the Russian stuff, to the assistant AG that was in charge of it. But he didn't do anything. He didn't do any of that at all. Had subsequent phone calls from the dinner, still did not correct the President of the United States, and it's part of his job. And if you make a good enough case, whether Trump likes it or not, he has to at least acknowledge that you're trying to do your job. And so all that added together in the testimony yesterday, I think President Trump was right, and again was vindicated for firing James Comey. He was not the right man for the job. I'm sorry. And we're not politically correct here. I don't know James Comey. He's my age. He's a year younger than I am. And that doesn't really mean anything. I'm just saying he's in my generation, and yet he didn't. We found out that Attorney General Loretta Lynch was actually the one doing the obstruction of justice and telling him, that this is not a criminal investigation with Hillary. This is a matter we're looking into. But the FBI was carrying out, and we don't know if they still are because he wouldn't comment on ongoing investigations, which tells me there's still an ongoing investigation. But there was obstruction of justice on Attorney General Lynch's behalf. And yet, all these people out here that are fabricating the news, the anti-freedom groups and the anti-freedom lamestream media out there said nothing about that. When it happened, they weren't up in arms about it. Now, conservatives were. Freedom folks were. They were like, you can't do this stuff. It wasn't a matter. I remember the talking heads at that time. So there's a lot of things we're going to go over here in the show today. I'm going to be checking the chat room every now and then because I have it up on my laptop. Again, if you haven't been on the show or watching the show, because of what happened last Friday and because of the CPU usage on each computer, I went to my laptop to actually have the YouTube channel up, because you got to have the YouTube channel live stream up and start the stream on there, and it was taking up too much resources. And so I got both my computers balanced out here right now. I'm running 60 to 75% CPU usage on both of these, my streaming and my main computer. And so I got everything balanced out pretty good here. So if I'm looking up here, that's only because I have the laptop set up above my monitors so I can help produce the show more. And this is just one of the ongoing things that we're going to be doing here. I have a Patreon page. You can go over to danclemenshow.com and click on the Patreon page and donate to the show to help me grow it. And I did up the monthly amount, and I think I went a little too high, but we'll see what happens. I redid the Patreon page a little bit. I have to go over there and get that caught up too. That's the last thing I have to get caught up from last Friday. And folks, it's been a struggle. I'm not a video editor, but I downloaded an open source shortcut, it's called, that works very well for me. Wondershare, I feel more Wondershare is really good, but it was, for some reason, it was taking too long to render the videos and to cut everything in. It still had a learning curve, and I needed something for my Linux machine, which is my streaming machine. So I have that over there, and what I'm doing is putting the videos over there and rendering them over there so I can still use this computer. I do have a couple issues with that, transferring files over. I have a 32 gigabyte thumb drive, and I'm trying to put a 5 gigabyte video on it, and it said the video is too big for the destination. So I got to figure out And it's empty. I don't even. It's a transfer thumb drive that I keep. I don't keep anything on it. I just transfer it back and forth. But technology, you gotta love it. All right. Rocky Mountain High Brands is the official drink of the Dan Clement Show. They are not an official sponsor, but they're official drink. And full disclosure, I do own stock in the company. It's part of my retirement portfolio. I've tried all their drinks. You can get a variety pack through Amazon if you're living on the East Coast and you can't find anything in your local stores. The best place to go is Amazon and look up Rocky Mountain High Brand, and you can get a variety pack, and or you can buy everything by case. I suggest if you're not familiar with it, that you buy the variety pack first. You get some energy shots and all the drinks in the photo here. You get black tea, you get the mango energy drink, you get the berry energy drink. You get the coconut lime energy drink, and you also get just straight lemonade, which tastes like Fresca. It's really good. They have Eagle Water. They have bars, protein bars, the whole thing. And so they're, like I said, they are the official drink of the Dan Clement Show. And I'm actually drinking, if I can get it up here, it's the coconut lime energy drink. It's low calorie, no sugar. And I didn't think I'd like the flavor of it, but it actually tastes really good. I kind of like it. Have a little sip there before we get going on here. All right, today's daily Bible reading comes from the Epistle of James, chapter 1, verses 22 through 24. Be ye doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word, and not a doer, he is like a man observing his natural face in a mirror, for he observes himself, goes away, and immediately forgets what kind of man he is or was. And this fits in with the theme that we've been talking about all week. Now, obviously, James is talking about God's word. Be ye doers of God's word, okay, and not hearers only. But as I always do on this show, I make Christian application to life, because I look at life, I look at the world through the Bible, the eyes of the Bible and Christianity, and my Christian walk with God and Christ. And if, we talked earlier in the week, kids are raised up, and I made the mistake of thinking if you're raised up one way, you know what you're talking about, and that's just not the case in a lot of cases. I'd say the vast majority of cases. And this applies. Be doers of the word. If you say you're a constitutionalist, make sure you know the Constitution. If you say you're a watermelon environmentalist, make sure you know the subject, because most of them don't. They're hearers of the word, but not doers. They get these facts and information, and this is all aspects of life: politics, religion, culture, you name it. You can say you're something, but if you're not a doer of what you're saying, it's just empty words. Today's quote meal comes from C.S. Lewis. Is I believe in Christianity as I believe the sun has risen, not only because I see it, but because by it I see everything else. And this goes along with what I've been talking about, that my Christian walk informs the rest of my life. It informs my politics, it informs my morality, it informs, everything in my life. Today's short Bible lesson actually comes out of answersingenesis.org. I share some of these that aren't part of the Church of Christ, but I read over them to make sure there's no scriptural errors in it. And it's a really good article by Avery Foley, Sexual Immorality Increasingly Acceptable Unless It's Adultery. And this is a societal thing. This isn't just dealing with the church. It's a societal thing, and it is the study that was cited in here, and some of the statistics are kind of startling, not surprising because of our culture today, because of the humanist culture that Christians are trying to fight, and humanists are trying to take out all sorts of moralities that nothing's actually, it doesn't matter with human cultures. Okay, I got some house cleaning I need to do because I said I was going to do it. I said earlier in the week, I talked about, there's an article in townhall.com, and all this is actually, first time in a long time, the show notes page is up over to danclementshow.com. So if you want to, you can go over there and click on episode 818, And you can follow along in the show notes, and it gives you the links and stuff like that. But talking about the global swindle, talks about a video in there. It's a documentary that you can watch for free on YouTube. Just Google it out of the article. For some reason, they didn't put a link in the article, but it's real easy to find. So I'd suggest you go watch that. But the one I want to talk about, let me get something going here. Is the one I talked earlier about solar jobs, green energy, and stuff like that. And it's more solar jobs are a curse, not a blessing. And I made mention of this earlier this week, but didn't have time to really go over it. And this is by Paul Dresden over at Mises.org. And he posted this on June 5th of this year. He says, citing U.S. Department of Energy data, the New York Times recently reported that the solar industry employs far more Americans than wind or coal. 374,000 workers in solar versus 100,000 in wind and 160,000 in coal mining and coal-fired power generation. Only the natural gas sector employs more people, 398,000 workers in gas production, electricity generation, home heating, and petrochemicals. Now, this article is well referenced, and this is why I like using these type of articles. It has links throughout the articles to what he's talking about, and that's why I like these articles, and that's why I use these. This is supposed to be a good thing according to the Times. It shows how important solar power has become in taking people out of unemployment lines and giving them productive jobs, the paper suggests. Indeed, the article notes California has the highest rate of solar power jobs per capita. And this is going to feed into what happened this week with Jerry Brown going to China and signing agreements with them that they're going to do this green energy stuff. But you're going to want to listen through this article because it's very, very important to our economy, to the California economy, and to the global economy. California has the highest rate of solar power jobs per capita in 2016 thanks to its robust renewable energy standards and installation incentives, i.e. mandates and subsidies. Now, can I stop reading here for a minute? I've actually talked to people in the past, and we would still, if we had the money, we would put some solar panels up for us to supplement our energy use. I wouldn't have battery backup or anything. They'd be grid tied. And if the sun shined, I'd be using more solar than I would grid electricity and vice versa. And I think that's for a homeowner, I think that's the way to go unless you want to totally go off the grid, which I don't. Okay? But I wouldn't mind supplementing it, and there's do-it-yourself solar panels out there that you can actually build. There's some new stuff on the horizon that are actually really good. But the only thing I have never done, and some people say I'm foolish for not doing this, I've replaced my hot water heater that I could have got tax rebates on. I'm putting a new propane furnace in, a high-efficiency propane furnace in that I could get tax credits on. But I'm not. I don't file for them. I don't even claim them on my taxes at the end of the year because, and this is the discussion I've had with folks, if I get this tax deduction or this subsidy or this incentive from the government, what's going to stop them from coming in and saying, since we gave you this, part of this is ours? And some people that I talk to that actually have solar and that, they never thought about that. And that's sort of like the invisible hand in the economy. They never thought about that. Not that I'm scared of the government doing that, but what's to stop a anti-freedom progressive government if we ever really get one going in the country here, which we do now, but hopefully we're trying to roll these things back. Well, what's to stop them from coming in like your solar panels in here? Well, since we paid for part of that saving should come to us is you need to pay us that. And I shared a story earlier this week about a man up in Canada, Prince Edward Island, that they were still making him pay taxes on the electricity that he was generating on his solar house. Again, what's to stop them? They could say that. Okay, you're grid tying, you're saving yourself money there, but you're still got to pay state and federal taxes on that electricity because we help subsidize that. So to eliminate that whole thing, I don't take the subsidies. I just don't. When I insulate things in a house, I could claim that on my taxes. I don't. And a lot of people think that's foolish because that's a tax incentive, and I should claim that. I'm just not I'm not comfortable with the government getting into my house or my property that way. But anyway, I don't want to belabor that too much. He says, in reality, it's not a good thing at all, and certainly not a positive trend. In fact, as Climate Depot and the Washington Examiner point out, and these, New York Times is not a credible publication anymore, folks. The Washington Post is not credible. CNN is not credible. The Washington Examiner is credible. The Climate Depot, from all my research, and I've looked in them before, they seem to be credible sources. They point out an American Enterprise Institute study, which is a credible organization. The job numbers actually underscore the wasteful, inefficient, unproductive solar power actually is. And you know, you could actually take take solar power out of there and put government in there, okay? This is glaringly obvious when you look at the amounts of energy produced per sector. This tally does not include electricity generated by nuclear, hydroelectric, or geothermal power plants. And we have a geothermal plant over here by Elizabethville. It's very small. I think it's experimental, but it still produces some electricity. 398,000 natural gas workers equals 38.8% of all electricity generated in the United States in 2016. 160,000 coal employees generates 30.4% of total electricity. Now that's key, because that's almost the coal industry, or the natural gas industry, is like almost twice, or a little bit over twice as much as the coal industry, and the power generation is real close in percentage. 100,000 employees and wind employees at 5.6%, and 374,000 employees, solar workers, and it only produces 0.9% of electricity for the nation's power. Even more glaring, when you look at the amount of electricity generated per worker, coal generates an incredible 7,745 megawatt hours of electricity per worker. Natural gas produces 3,812 megawatt hours per worker. Wind, a measly 836 megawatt hours for every employee, and solar, an abysmal 98 megawatt hours per worker. Folks, that's just incredible. Those findings, those statistics are just blowing my mind. In other words, producing the same amount of electricity requires one coal worker, 2 natural gas workers, and 12 wind industry workers, or 79 solar workers. Even worse, whereas coal and electricity is cheap, affordable, available 100% of the time, wind and solar are expensive, intermittent, unreliable, and available only 15 to 30% of the time. And on an annual basis, wind and solar electricity is there when it's there, and not necessarily when you need it. The truth about the only thing solar and wind companies do well is collect billions of dollars in subsidies from taxpayers, and billions of dollars in much higher electricity rates from consumers. And when you look at the overall picture, solar and wind power generation is far worse than this. Land, wind and solar require vastly more coverage or acreage. Modern coal or gas-fired power plants are roughly 30 or 300 acres to generate 600 megawatts nearly 100% of the time. The 600 megawatt Fowler Ridge wind farm in Indiana covers 50,000 acres and generates electricity about 20% of the year. Nevada's Nellis Air Force Base solar panels generate a trivial 14 megawatts 22% of the time from 140 acres. Getting 600 megawatts 22% of the time from such panels would require 6,000 acres. Okay, to match what coal and gas does. Backup power, and this is the thing that this is the thing that folks who drive electric vehicles and like Elon Musk with Tesla, and Toyota has electric vehicles, Nissan has electric vehicles, and Lexus. All these people have these electric vehicles that are battery operated. And get this, folks, backup power. Wind and solar power generation is random and intermittent. It must be backed up by reliable coal or gas power. That actually do 80% of the work. So we must build both renewable sources, systems, and the fuel system. Now, can I say something here? And I'm not being a hypocrite here by saying I'd love to put solar panels out here or even a windmill on my property to help generate electricity. That's a private citizen, me, Doing that with my own money, like I said, I won't take tax subsidies or incentives or anything like that. If I put it up, it's going to be out of my own pocket with my own money, my own time, sweat, and tears to help me not have to pay the electric company so much money. And that's, for an individual to do that, to choose that, that's great. But for the government, for the federal government to go beyond the Constitution and choose this to subsidize all these green industries for the whole nation, that's hypocritical, because they still have to build the backup plants. They do. Raw materials. This is another one that'll blow your mind. All those wind turbines, solar panels, backup power plants, and transmission lines require huge amounts of concrete, steel, copper, fiberglass, rare earth minerals, and other resources. Ores must be dug out of the ground, processed into usable raw materials, and turned into finished components. If we relied on the coal and gas power, we wouldn't need all the land and raw materials and energy to process them required for hundreds of wind turbines and thousands of solar panels. Environmental and human rights impact is another thing that they never tell you about. You know, just like climate change, they never put the terms human-caused climate change in front of it, just climate change. The United States has essentially banned mining for rare earth and other metals, so we import them from other countries. Rare earth metals for wind turbines and solar panels come from the Beitou region of China, Mongolia, where environmental and worker health and safety standards and conditions are horrendous, leaving sick workers in ecological degradation. It's over there, not here. So that's okay. So it's out of sight, out of mind, in other words. High electricity costs. Even with all the hidden taxpayer subsidies, electricity from wind and solar is typically twice as expensive as from conventional sources. That affects family and business budgets. Energy incentives, hospitals and factories face soaring energy cost increases that result in layoffs and plant closures. Studies in Britain, Germany, and Spain found that every wind and solar job created results in 2 to 4 jobs lost in other sectors of the economy that must buy expensive wind or solar electricity. Wildlife and habitats. Solar panels blanket vast acreage, preventing the plants from growing under them and reducing wildlife habitat and populations. Wind turbines are notorious for killing eagles, hawks, and other birds and bats, though the actual death toll is hidden by wind companies and government agencies, which also exempt big wind companies from endangered species and other wildlife protection laws. Climate change. Once we factor in the redundant energy systems, long transmission lines, raw materials required to build all of them, and energy required for mining, processing, manufacturing, transportation, construction, and maintenance, wind and solar bring no reduction in carbon dioxide or other greenhouse gas emissions. Therefore, even if these gases now drive climate change, which they don't, wind and solar bring no climate benefits. They're all pain for no gain. Even with all this special treatment, Suniva just became the latest solar company to file for bankruptcy, and now it says it and other U.S. solar companies will totally disappear unless the government immediately imposes tariffs on solar cells and modules imported from anywhere other than the U.S. So they want import restrictions, okay? Wind and solar are simply a bad deal for consumers, workers, and the environment. And after reading this, even though I want to put these solar panels up, I'm actually rethinking it, you know, if I really want to do this. But if I do this, it's for me. I'm not imposing this on anybody else. And I should have the freedom and liberty to do this. The government should not be able to steal my tax dollars for something that's unconstitutional to begin with for them to be doing, to subsidize all this green energy, which it isn't. Because every time every time I've ever seen a documentary on solar panels or wind energy, they never talk about the mining, like they said down here in the bottom here, in the last paragraph here. You know, once we factor in the redundant energy systems, the backup energy, long transmission lines, because you can't build the farms next to, because of the acreage and stuff, you got to build them out in the wide open, the wind and solar farms. So you got to build the transmission lines and bring them to the population centers and tie them into the grid. The energy required for mining, processing, manufacturing, transportation, construction, and maintenance. Wind and solar bring no reduction in carbon dioxide or other greenhouse gas emissions. Now, they're building like a 1,200 megawatt gas turbine. Uses natural gas to turn the turbine. It's a double system where the initial steam that's driving the turbine or the heat. I'm not exactly sure how it works. I think it's the gas actually burns like in a jet. They recover that to boil water to turn another turbine, and I haven't seen the blueprints as far as the description of how it actually works. They're building that over there, and when they get that done, it's going to be 100% of the time. You know, I'll be able to turn the switch on, except when we have power outages on the transmission lines, but that's no fault of the power plant. We'll have cheaper energy, because it's actually replacing a coal plant, which it didn't need to be replaced to begin with. It was just because the Obama administration doing an end round around Congress unconstitutionally, and started by executive order getting rid of coal mining and coal electric generation. And we live in the heart of coal country here. It makes sense to use coal to generate electricity, and it can be done cleanly. That plant was operating cleanly over there. Matter of fact, they're going to be building a second 1,200 megawatt power generation plant over there, just down the road from the one they're building now. So we're capitalizing on the Marshall natural gas boom that we have here in Pennsylvania. But if you have friends that go around saying solar and wind, that's where we need to go, you need to remind them that there's a lot of steps you got to go through first in the mining and manufacturing, transportation, construction, all that, before you even get the windmills and the solar panels up. And in the end, for the country anyway, they're not economical for the country. And I'm not going to say that they're not for an individual, but it's up to the individual to make that determination. As long as you're not infringing or aggressing on somebody else's property, and you're not forcing other people to do it, have at it if you want to do that. I mean, last time I checked, it was America, folks, and we have the freedom and liberty still to do these type of things. Just the federal government does not have that freedom and liberty to impose them on us. And as far as I'm concerned, Governor Jerry Brown in California, California's already in a death spiral financially, and it's only going to get worse. You know, the only reason why it hasn't gone down so fast as it should have, is because of the economy. You know, California, I think, was like one of the 5th or 6th biggest economies in the world, and it was just a state. But even that has limits. Even the robust economy that California has limits to how much you can take out of it before you throw the state into a financial death spiral. And folks, it's coming out there. I mean, it's going to happen. And Jerry Brown and the watermelon environmentalists out there that populate Sacramento and the House out in Sacramento, the government, throughout government, and the social justice tyrants out there are doing nothing to save that. All they're doing is siphoning off money from that economy, and it's literally going to die. So I got that out of the way. I just wanted to share that with you, folks, because this is very, very important. Now, I did say, and where do I have it up here? Okay. I've been talking this week, and let me get it up here. Now, this is just a, let me see here. What is that? Okay. This is raw. I don't have any links up. I'm still doing research. This is initial research. Gas and diesel tax collected in the U.S. Now, we hear President Trump talking about this $1 trillion infrastructure going on, right? And I don't think it's going to be $1 trillion in 1 year. I've been trying to read into it. I believe it's over, it could be up to 10 years, because all these budgets are like 10-year budgets for whatever stupid reason, which I don't agree with that either. I think if the government's going to do a budget, it needs to be a yearly budget. That's one of the jobs we sent our representatives to the Capitol to begin with in the federal government. Gas and diesel fuel taxes collected in the U.S. Now, these are all averages, and this is combined. Gasoline, average American gasoline tax, federal and state combined, is 41 cents per gallon in 2016. But they separate out diesel, number 2 diesel, that trucks and highway diesel, what they call it. The combined federal and state tax, that is 55 cents a gallon. And with the diesel, and most of that using in trucks, guess who gets to pay that tax? Guess where that's passed on to? You and me, the consumer. Okay? 2016 was the latest figures I could find on gasoline use. Now, this is refined gasoline, and this is something I talked to my wife about in the studies I've been trying to read and research. They don't separate out the gasoline I buy to mow my grass with. You know, it's not a lot, but I still buy, 5 gallons at a time or 10 gallons at a time, and I'll go through multiple, I use a ride mower, I'll go through a bunch of those throughout the season, the mowing season. So they don't separate that out, and you can't buy off-road gasoline. It's not like diesel. You can buy off-road diesel that's colored red. So America in 2016 used about approximately 143 billion gallons of gasoline to get around. Okay, and this actually has been reducing. The gasoline use has been reducing because of the higher fuel savings on the vehicles. And I still say the CAFE standards, where the federal government says you will, your fleet, like the combined total of all the production of vehicles you produce, has to meet this high level of standard. I believe the free market was already heading that way to begin with, because people were wanted to pinch pennies, and they wanted to see if they can make their dollar go further, and this is forcing competition in the marketplace to make more and more fuel efficient vehicles. And I truly believe that this would have happened outside of government regulation, because it was already happening before that. So that generates about $70 billion average tax collected a year. That could be higher, could be lower. I think it probably needs to be a little bit higher, but we'll stick with the numbers I've been finding so far, because this is just raw research. Average, like I said, the average fuel consumption, the latest one I found was 2012. I couldn't find any for last year, which that was kind of funny because of all the reporting that trucking companies have to do with how much fuel they use and the taxes they pay on it. But in 2012, the number 2 diesel, which is a road diesel, 36 billion gallons were used, and that generated $19 billion. So we have a combine of about 89 to $90 billion a year, just under $100 billion. And my question, and me and my wife even talk about this, if they're collecting that much money annually across the United States, why aren't our roads and bridges any better than they are? Where's all that money going to? And that's where we have to really start doing some research on. What are they spending that money on? I know here in Pennsylvania, they divert, and it's something we can find out in the budget, they divert DOT dollars that are collected from gasoline and diesel taxes to subsidize mass transit in Philly and Pittsburgh. So that's where a lot of that money goes. And so if that money's being diverted to mass transit in those two cities, it's not being used on bridges, it's not being used on roads to maintain them, to build them. One of the things I found funny here in Pennsylvania that I found out, because a cousin of mine was a DOT comptroller, when companies, and they do this a lot, they put out these contracts, and these companies bid on these contracts to build the roads, there's no guarantees from the companies. I said, what do you mean? There's no warranty, no guarantee? There's no, I should say warranty, not guarantee. There's no warranty by the company that this road's going to last this long. If it doesn't, you got to come back in and fix it. They said, no, they don't require that in contracting. I'm like, so you and I build a house, or you build a house, or I build a house, and we do get warranties, and you can. I know some contractors that build homes, and they do have to sign warranties for quality of workmanship and stuff like that for, I don't know how long they have to, I can't remember the exact, it's like maybe 5 years or something like that. And this is something, I'm like, well, it's common sense for you and I to get a warranty on, we buy something, we get warranties on them, or we're at least offered warranties. Our automobiles have warranties on them, 100,000 miles or, so many years. Drivetrain, or bumper to bumper, it doesn't matter. But yet on our highway system, and I dare say this is probably nationwide, when we hire contractors, they don't warranty their work. They could walk away, and a year later things could be breaking up, and it's like you see the DOT, workers out there trying to fix what a contractor did. And so where's the incentive for the contractor to make a quality product for the American consumer to run their cars on? There's a lot of things that need to be changed. There really does. And in one aspect, I agree with Donald Trump. The way we negotiate things, the way we get things done as Americans or as government, whether it's federal or state, when it comes to spending the taxpayer dollars, we are very stupid, I guess, governmentally. We don't take care to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And I think that's, I think morally that's reprehensible. that the state puts these contracts out for millions of dollars to get highways, repaired, like replacing the whole road and stuff like that, or replacing bridges, or repairing them so they can get more life out of them, things like that. And there's no warranty on them. So that's to me, that's a huge issue. That's a real big issue. All right. We have about a little under 20 minutes. We can talk more about yesterday. Hopefully you've seen it. If you didn't see it, I saw it. Political theater at its best, folks. But everybody behaved themselves. I was kind of surprised with that. Now, you definitely could see the divide, left and right, Republican, Democrat, freedom, anti-freedom. You could all see all that divide during this testimony. But the one glaring thing that I saw in the whole testimony was James Comey. And I'm not trying to judge him unfairly or unkindly, but just through his actions, he doesn't seem to be a strong individual. He refused to stand up to President Trump. And one thing I've learned in my life, I don't know about women, but men, and I believe freedom, liberty-loving men across America, when they put their pants on, they put them on one leg at a time, and usually they put their left leg on first. I'm just, or the right. I did a study of that with myself. I actually didn't know which leg I couldn't remember which leg I put on first, so I consciously did this for about a month or two. Put my left leg in first, and then put my right leg on, and did that for a long time. And then I consciously switched to the right leg and did that for a while, and that stuck. Honestly, I don't care which leg you put on first, but if you're a freedom-loving, liberty-loving, red-blooded American male, you put your pants on one leg at a time, and if you put them on two legs at a time, I can't help you. I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. But the point I'm making here is that Comey seemed very weak in his position. He wouldn't stand up to Donald Trump. I said this in the monologue. He wouldn't stand up to Donald Trump, and he failed to. I believe Comey has a duty to inform, and this came up in the hearing about your duty to inform the president, to educate the president, because here we have a civilian, could be a military person, could because with background and all that kind of stuff, but in essence, when you ascend to the presidency of the United States through the Electoral College and the constitutional way you get there, and that's exactly what happened in this last election, that President Trump won the Electoral College. I mean, smoked Hillary in the Electoral College, and that's what everybody's up in arms about. But anyway, that's a whole other story. You're a civilian. You're a politician. I mean, whether you're an outsider or not, you're looking to get into the political arena, so you are a politician. And he got there, but he doesn't know everything. That's why folks, that's why you surround yourself with all these people. Real quick, like my show logo. Honestly, I couldn't create that in a million years. I am not artistic. I could not create that in a million years. My wife loves it. My buddy Dave likes it. My wife said she would tweak a couple things on it, but she says all in all, it's a good logo. And like I said, I couldn't create that myself. So I outsourced that from myself because I'm not that creative. There's a lot of things that I try to do on the show. Video editing, I don't like it. I loathe it. And I don't mind computers. That's just not my forte. I don't like it. And so eventually I'm going to hire that out. I'm going to have hopefully somebody, my goals are lofty for this program, folks, but if the Lord blesses me and we continue down this road we're going on, we're hopefully either I'm going to build a garage out here and put studios in out there and have people work there, or we'll go rent a place or go buy a place. Some businesses around here like downtown Selinsgrove, Sunbury, have some very reasonable prices on their buildings, and the one building I was actually looking at has 3 apartments upstairs that aren't being used. The building's in good shape. Already went and looked at it. Not that I'm able to afford it. I'm nosy. I'm nosy that way. It would make a good studio for the Dan Clement Show, and it would have offices where I could bring people in that do video editing, graphic designs, research, help me put together the show, engineer the show, produce the show, set up guests, all the whole shebang. So this is this is what President Trump has done. He tries to, and you should do, you surround yourself with people that know what they're talking about. Quality people. And sometimes these quality people happen to have been in government. Okay. You know, and I know a lot of libertarians are complaining about that, but, you know, it's President Trump's decision. And he hasn't been in office that long to actually see if his decision is going to pan out or not. So far, with this hearing, he's been vindicated. He wasn't under investigation. There's no collusion with the Russians. I said earlier this week, and I went back and did some research on this, all you got to do is Google Vault 7, WikiLeaks Vault 7. And in that, they were saying that hackers, there's tools that the security services throughout the world use that they can mask who they are. And I was watching Stefan Monolo, I believe it's how you pronounce his name, on YouTube, and he made a point that I didn't think about. I was talking about the hacking, how you can cover up. Seems funny to me that this whole narrative around the Russian hacking, and James Comey spoke to that as much as he could, and exonerated the Trump campaign and President Trump and everything, so that cloud's gone there. But it seems funny and strange to me, and this is what Stefan was talking about yesterday, that if Russia did do the hacking, and they have all the sophistication to do this hacking, why would they leave tracks that it was them doing it? It doesn't make sense, and it really doesn't. If you stop and think about it, it doesn't make sense at all. So I thought Stefan brought a very good point out about that, and it was something that was sort of gnawing at the back of my mind. And you ever get that where thoughts like gnawing at the back of your mind, and someone says something, and boom, it comes to the forefront and everything's clear? Well, that's what happened. And I was thinking, yeah, that's right. I knew that hackers could cover their tracks and sort of make it look like somebody else is doing it, and the tools are getting more sophisticated to do that nowadays. And so wouldn't you think if Russia actually did the hacking that they could cover up their tracks and make it look like somebody else was doing it? I'm just saying, folks. So there's a lot of things that don't add up with this. I still think it's all fake and fabricated. Someone got the notion in the anti-freedom groups and in the deep state that we need to dogpile on the President Trump because he won the election and he's the President of the United States now, and so we're just going to do everything with our power to dogpile on him, and we're just going to throw all the stuff up against the wall. And I like what James Comey said. He said a lot of people are talking about these intelligence reports, really don't know what they're talking about because the people that do aren't talking to them. You know, it is a serious crime to leak classified or sensitive information. And matter of fact, there's some folks and there's some articles that if you go over to danclemenshow.com, you'll see a bunch of them over there. Now, folks like at Slate and Huffington Post, they're talking about how the Comey hearing was extraordinary, but they're not talking about how you and I might be thinking about it. They're saying there's a lot of stuff that came out that hasn't exonerated Donald Trump, and I'm not sure what hearing they were watching. And again, I'm not a Trump supporter. You know, I do support the United States of America as a republic, a constitutional republic. I support the office of president, but I'm not put my blind faith in that. I don't blindly follow Donald Trump. You know, if he does right, I'll give him credit, kudos. If he does wrong, I'll criticize him for it, and I'll come on here and talk about it. I do it both ways here. Comey testimony shows it's not the crime that could hurt Trump; it's the cover-up. Well, the thing about if you actually watched, and I question if they actually watched these testimonies by James Comey and the intelligence directors the day before, Donald Trump's not trying to cover anything up. He just wanted to get this thing over, get this cloud off his head. And we had this on the show yesterday. This real quick here, the Huffington Post and the cloud.
On the morning of March 30th, the president called me at the FBI. He described the Russia investigation as a, quote, cloud.
The president described the Russian matter as a cloud.
That there's this cloud.
All right, folks, that didn't work because for some reason that was, I forgot. I have to make sure that I change my speakers on my computer before I start up my OBS, and it was on my USB speakers, but you've seen it yesterday. You've seen the whole thing yesterday on the show where they're, it's a cloud. It was a cloud. It's a cloud. It's a cloud. Well, I think that cloud's been lifted. I really do. through this testimony. So, and this is, I do this. I don't have to do this. I don't have to share these articles from Slate and Huffington Post and stuff like that. I don't. But I just want to show people that I try to be fair. I try to do research, opposition research, we call it, and see what they're saying. I think they're totally wrong, but, you know, I still like to share it. Ben Shapiro has a really good article, 9 big takeaways from the Obama. Let me see here if I can find it real quick. 9 big takeaways from the overblown Comey hearing. 1, Trump didn't try to kill the Russian investigation. 2, Loretta Lynch acted improperly and Comey found it troubling. There again, Comey had a duty to inform Loretta Lynch, even though she was his boss, that what you're doing is a crime, telling me to change this from an investigation to a matter. And again, he sort of cowered, in my opinion. He should have stood up to her. If he was a man of integrity like everybody says he is, he should have stood up to her and said, I can't do that. It's not a matter. It's a criminal investigation. That's how we have to advance on this. And so here's a clear case with Loretta Lynch obstructing justice. 3, President Trump acted improperly and Comey found it troubling. This one here, Comey testified repeatedly that Trump edged around the quid pro quo language more than once, talking about loyalty and hope and stuff like that. But still, President Trump did not order him to stop the investigation like he talked up here before. Didn't try to kill the Russian investigation. 4, Trump's actions may earn him an investigation for obstruction. I don't see where that is. Ben Shapiro's a lawyer and he sees that. In this point here, the 4th point, Comey said he believed that Special Counsel Robert Mueller would look into potential obstruction of justice against Trump as part of the Russian probe. Comey added, I don't think it's for me to say whether the conversation I had with the president was an effort to obstruct. And I watched the hearing and I heard what he said, and there was no direct order given. And that sort of contradicts Ben's, and I like Ben, but it sort of contradicts his point. I've heard Trump didn't try to kill the Russian investigation. Okay. Point 5, Trump probably fired Comey out of personal spite. As I predicted in May, the story seems that Trump wanted Comey to publicly clear him, and a not unreasonable request, given that Comey was privately telling him he wasn't under investigation. So Comey kept refusing to do that, and okay, but there's nothing unconstitutional about it. There's nothing untoward about it. The President of the United States can fire anybody in his chain of command. 6, Comey thinks Trump is a liar who defamed him and the FBI and challenges his credibility over tapes. The big headline from the left today is that Comey kept he kept notes on Trump because he thought Trump was a liar from the get-go. He also testified that Trump defamed him and the FBI by constantly insulting him, in Twitter, okay? And I think he has a point there to a certain point. I think he does have a point there. 7, there's some information about Attorney General Sessions' contact with the Russians we still don't know. And folks, I'm of the opinion, after I've watched all this go on, this political theater been going on for quite a long time, and it sort of come to a head yesterday. Not to a head, but there's still the special prosecutor. There's still congressional hearings that they want to hold. But I don't think any of these meetings with the Russians was untoward. I don't think there was any problems with them personally. That's just my personal opinion. 8, Comey leaked his memos to prompt the naming of a special counsel. And this is where I think Comey's going to get in trouble, or should get in trouble, because he was leaking sensitive information that was part of an investigation. And I was doing some research and listening to some shows this morning on YouTube, and the timeline doesn't fit. He actually released those memos the day before President Trump tweeted about, hoping about the taping. So his timeline doesn't fit. Now, maybe he made a mistake. I'll give him that. He might have made a mistake and didn't remember it correctly. But he seemed, Comey, if one thing I noticed about him, he has a very sharp memory. And I wouldn't doubt if he doesn't have a photographic memory maybe, or some kind of special ability for his memory, because he didn't have any notes sitting there, and he recalled all these dates and blah, 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 just spit them out. 9, Comey didn't quit when he should have. If Comey thought that Trump was consistently threatening his job, he should have gone public with it or quit. He certainly should have told the president that his conduct was inappropriate. He didn't. That leaves him in a catch-22. He can't openly claim obstruction, but say he didn't feel obstructed enough to leave the administration. Comey's defenders may claim that Comey's ouster represented a final act of obstruction by Trump, but it's not technically obstruction, as Alan Dorchowitz has pointed out, and there's no evidence that any investigation has slowed or closed as a result of Comey's firing. And that right there, folks, is the whole thing in a nutshell. The investigation's still going on whether Comey was there or not, and he even said so. He even said whether he's there or not, the investigation is going on, that's not going to affect him. So how even firing, and this is what I hear on Facebook and Twitter, even the firing of Comey, how is that obstruction of justice? Because the investigations are going to still go on. Real quick here, we only got a couple minutes left. Comey, these are a bunch of things that came out of this. Comey warns against fake news, and we talked about that a little bit, how those people that think they know, they have these anonymous sources that think they know, they really don't know. Because the people that know don't normally, as a habit, actually leak these things. I think Marco Rubio had the line of the day, or one of the lines of the day there. If all these things were being leaked, why didn't we hear any evidence being leaked about, actual evidence about Trump's innocence or, being investigated or whatever? You think they'd want to, that this would actually get leaked out. There's any, and maybe I'm paraphrasing, I don't have the exact quote of that. Lynch pressured FBI to downplay Clinton email investigation. We talked about that, but that's an article in the show notes page today. Comey debunks New York Times report about Trump campaign having repeated contacts with Russians. That was a huge one. Comey, private dossier containing false Trump allegation drove FBI counterspiracy probe. Again, he debunked it. There was nothing to that dossier, nothing. Comey says the administration never asked him to drop the Russia probe. Senator Marco Rubio demolishes Comey's testimony, the Russian narrative, and there's a video. I didn't get a chance to get that video up because I was finishing up all my work today. I'm totally caught up. But there's a link in there to that. Here's 13 things you need to know about Bernie Chick arrested for Trump leaks, and that was that reality winner. Ginsburg faces calls to recuse herself from the Trump travel ban. That was another thing there, too, that I thought was kind of interesting. So there's a whole bunch of things that I didn't get to on the show, but, I pack a lot in an hour. Maybe I should have went to an hour and a half today on the show. So maybe some Friday we might end up doing that. And also NBC says there's no smoking gun from Comey, but horrendous day for Trump, which, again, they're getting it wrong. We hear the music. That's the end of the show. Fear not. We'll be back with you Monday. It's been the Dan Clemens Show. I'm your host, Dan Clemens, your Constitution warrior. Remember, if you aim at nothing, you hit it every time. And please, on Sunday, attend the church of God's choice, not your choice. Have a great rest of the day, and God bless. And we'll see you Monday, Lord willing.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.